Welcome to Reparenting Radio. I'm Lisa Watson, architect of human transformation. This is a space for leaders, parents, and anyone ready to break old patterns, regulate their nervous system, and show up in their life with clarity and self-trust. If you're ready to change the way you lead, love, and live, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to Reparenting Radio. This episode feels really important to me because I think that we are finally beginning to have a conversation that humanity has needed to have for a very long time. And I can feel it dripping into the collective consciousness. I feel more and more people having awareness over this, but it's a conversation about who a child learns they need to become in order to belong and to stay connected, to feel loved and to feel safe. And a lot of adults are walking around carrying emotional exhaustion, anxiety, people-pleasing, hyper-independence, perfectionism, chronic overwhelm, the inability to rest, and difficulty expressing their needs without realizing that many of those things started as intelligent survival adaptations in childhood. And I think that's what we're becoming aware of. We're becoming aware of the fact that these are not just personality traits, they're adaptations. And I think that that distinction changes everything. In this episode, it was truly inspired by two songs that I've been listening to for the past couple of weeks that hit me right in my nervous system. One of them is called Celebrate Me by Inca Rose, and the other is called I Was a Kid by Damon Price, and I will include the links, the Spotify links to both of those songs in the show notes. There was one line in particular in the Damon Price song that absolutely stopped me in my tracks, and that line was, I learned how to stay small. And oof, I felt that one in my body. And what really struck me was not just how deeply that line resonated with me personally, because what he speaks about in this song is not exactly my experience, but the result was the same. And I realized how many people these songs are resonating with collectively, because I think more and more people are beginning to realize, wow, maybe I was carrying more than I understood. Maybe my childhood impacted me more than I wanted to admit. And I think that this is the elephant in the room that we're finally starting to talk about. The reality that so many human beings learn survival before they learn safety. The child who learned to stay quiet, the one that had to become hyper aware of everyone else's emotions, the child who became easy, who learned not to cry, the one that learned to perform for approval, the child who became helpful and responsible and mature and self-sufficient and invisible, not for any other reason other than their nervous system adapted intelligently to the environment that they were in. And these adaptations may have made life a little bit easier for their parents, but unfortunately, the impact that it's had on their nervous system has been detrimental. And I really want this to be understood. What I'm talking about in families and in childhood is not about severe trauma. It's not about abusive homes. This is not about neglect and abandonment or narcissistic parents. Because I think sometimes people hear conversations like this and they immediately think, well, my parents loved me. I had great parents. My childhood wasn't that bad. And honestly, most parents did love their children deeply. Most parents were doing the best that they could with the awareness that they had. But loving parents can still unintentionally condition children into self-abandonment. Although there is a huge part of the population that experienced the trauma, the neglect, the narcissistic parents, and all that as well. But I think it is important that we do understand that just because your parents weren't that there still may be some things that had affected you in your childhood that are maybe important to look at. Because many of these things normalized in childhood environments, they impact the nervous system in ways we are only now beginning to fully understand. Things like, stop crying. You're fine. Go to your room until you calm down. Don't talk back. Because I said so. Be nice. Be grateful. Don't embarrass me. Why are you so sensitive? Why can't you be more like your brother? Good job. Look how easy she is. Wow, he never causes problems like you do. And listen, none of those things automatically make someone a bad parent by saying them. But many children unconsciously interpret those moments as, my emotions are too much. My needs are inconvenient. I'm safest when I'm easy. I shouldn't upset other people. I need to monitor everyone else's emotions. Love is something that I earn. I have to perform to belong. And because children are egocentric developmentally, definitely through the age of 8, they personalize everything. Children aren't thinking, my parent is dysregulated, oh no, or she had a bad day at work. They think something must be wrong with me. That becomes programming. And then we grow up and suddenly we're adults saying things like, I don't know why I can't relax. I don't know why I overthink everything. I don't know why I feel guilty when I rest. I don't know why I can't set good boundaries. I guess it's just my personality. I don't know why I'm terrified to disappoint people. I guess I'm just not brave. I don't know why I keep abandoning myself in relationships. I'm just stupid. I don't know why I feel exhausted all the time. Meanwhile, their nervous system has been running a survival strategy for over 30 years. I see this constantly in my clients, and honestly, I see it everywhere now. I watch children apologizing for having emotions. I hear adults constantly saying sorry after the smallest disruption or misalignment, like they need to apologize for their existence. I watch little kids being rushed through their feelings because adults are uncomfortable with them. I've watched emotionally overwhelmed adults trying to gain control through behavior management instead of nervous system awareness. And again, this isn't about blame. I think most parents genuinely love or, loved their children and did their best, even if that translated into not so good parenting. It was their best at the time. Personally, I know my mother and father both loved me immensely, but neither of them were able to give me what I needed from a parent because they never received it themselves and they truly did not know how. We have inherited generations of parents with dysregulated nervous systems, and that's the truth. Most people were never taught emotional regulation themselves. Most people were taught suppression, performance, compliance, disconnection, people-pleasing, codependency, emotional avoidance, overworking, caretaking, survival. And then we wonder why adults are disconnected, exhausted, depressed, addicted, emotionally shut down, chronically overwhelmed, or unable to feel safe being their authentic selves. Many people were unconsciously taught that authenticity threatened belonging. And that's huge. That's a huge discovery. I think many of us have learned very early, if I want connection, I need to become who the environment needs me to be. And that is the birth of self-abandonment. And what's interesting is that many of the children who were praised the most were actually the most disconnected from themselves. The good kid, the easy one, the mature one, the helper, the caretaker, the high achiever, the child who never needed anything, and everyone celebrated it. Meanwhile, internally, that child may have been carrying hypervigilance, fear, suppressed anger, suppressed grief, loneliness, pressure, anxiety, even emotional isolation. But because they were functioning, nobody noticed. And often, the praise they received for being good, that only kept them trapped inside their own self-abandonment. That's why this topic means so much to me. Also because I've spent the majority of my life unwinding from this conditioning myself and regulating my own nervous system and not falling into relationships where I abandon myself anymore. When sometimes it is simply because so many adults think their exhaustion and their flaws are a character flaw, some sort of identity issue, personality traits. When sometimes it's simply the accumulated weight of years spent managing themselves for the comfort of other people, because that is exhausting. And that's one of the reasons I love the song I mentioned earlier, Celebrate Me by Iniko Rose. In this song, it's such a powerful song. She speaks about celebrating ourselves and everything we have had to carry. And she reminds us that no one is coming to save us. We have to become the ones who finally do that for ourselves. So many of us have spent the majority of our lives managing our tone, managing our emotions, managing our reactions, how much space we take up, our truth, our needs, our body, our authenticity. And all of this hypervigilance, it costs us energy. And eventually, many adults reach a point where their nervous system says, I can't carry this anymore. And that's often when awakening begins and where real change starts to happen. We start leaving the relationships that we have to abandon ourselves in. We start leaving the jobs. We start to wake up. And eventually the body stops because eventually the body is going to stop cooperating with self-abandonment. And typically there's some sort of illness or disease that's going to happen in the interim to bring it to your awareness if you're not paying attention. And I think that one of the most important things we can understand is that survival is not proof that something didn't hurt you. It's proof of how strong you had to become. And I really, really want people to hear that, because so many adults are invalidating themselves by saying things like, well, other people had it worse than I do. I survived. My parents loved me. It could have been a lot worse. Well, at least, it made me who I am today. And all of those things are true. Your parents may have loved you deeply, and your nervous system may still have adapted in painful ways. Both of those things can exist. But it's time we begin validating ourselves. Through the work that I do, I learned very early in my studying and in my work with conscious parenting how important it is to validate a child's experience. And the interesting thing is, children do not actually want you to fix everything for them. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and they want to be understood. When a child falls down, they don't need a lecture. They don't need you to tell them, oh, you're okay. They need to hear, oh, wow, I bet that hurt. And when someone grabs a toy from them, they don't need you to tell them everything's okay. They just need to hear, wow, you're frustrated right now. Or, wow, I bet that felt unfair. That validation alone allows their nervous system to process the experience instead of suppressing it. And eventually, what I realized is that our inner child needs the same exact thing from us: validation. This is how we rescue the younger parts of ourselves that are still frozen out on those old timelines. We stop dismissing them. We stop minimizing our feelings. We stop saying, other people had it worse. You're fine. Just move on. Can you imagine if a child got hurt, which I'm sure this happens all the time, and all we said to them is, you're fine. Other people have it worse than you do. I've seen sharks cut off someone's arm, so, you only have a gash in it. It's not a big deal. You're fine. That child would simply just not feel seen. They wouldn't feel safe. They wouldn't feel emotionally held. And over time, that kind of disconnection can result in, or can lead to, anxiety, depression, emotional numbness, overeating, substance abuse, people-pleasing, perfectionism, or chronic self-abandonment. The feelings and underlying truth that we resist will persist until we finally tell ourselves, yeah, that happened, and that was hard, and I'm proud of you for surviving that, and you do not have to carry it alone anymore. I am here for you. This is when everything will begin to change. Because we are not children anymore. We make our own decisions now, and we can begin becoming the safe, validating presence that we never fully had in our childhood. We can begin to tell ourselves, you are allowed to be authentic. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to feel, and you are allowed to stop abandoning yourself in order to belong. This is not about becoming victims to the past. This is about understanding the present, because present awareness changes everything. When we understand our patterns, when we stop personalizing them, when we stop beating ourselves up for them, when we stop seeing ourselves as defective, instead, we begin asking, what happened inside my nervous system? What did I learn about safety? What did I learn about love? What did I learn about emotions? What version of myself did I have to create in order to feel safe and belong? Those questions are where the healing begins, not through blame, but awareness and honesty. And honestly, this conversation matters because children are still being shaped right now, every single day. And I think we need to begin parenting nervous systems, not just behavior. That's a massive difference because behavior is communication. Tantrums, shutting down, aggression, avoidance, clinginess, perfectionism, defiance. Those are all just ways of communicating. This is how children communicate when they don't have the prefrontal cortex. They don't know how to express their emotions or what they mean. These are not bad behaviors. They're simply nervous system expressions. And because we have spent generations simply trying to domesticate children instead of understand them, trying to make them convenient, quiet, easy, productive, compliant, without fully understanding the long-term emotional consequences of disconnecting human beings from themselves. Just stick a screen in their hand, then they won't bother you. But are we looking at the long-term effects of that? And again, this is not about permissiveness. This is not about letting children do whatever they want. This is about And and this absolutely isn't about not having any boundaries. Children need structure. Children need leadership, and children need guidance. Those things make children feel safe. But leadership without emotional safety creates fear-based adaptation. And that is very different from regulation. I think that many adults today are still carrying, I know they are, carrying younger versions of themselves that never fully felt emotionally safe to exist authentically. I mean, that is the work that I do. And this is also why I write children's books, because we've got to stop it from continuing. And when a child doesn't feel safe emotionally to be their authentic self, this can impact everything. It impacts relationships. It impacts their parenting. It will impact their leadership, their ability to do business well, their health, their self-worth. It impacts our ability to rest, our ability to have intimate relationships, to manifest money and creativity, to hold boundaries, to express ourselves authentically. It affects everything, because the nervous system becomes the lens through which we experience life. And the beautiful thing is, we can change. The brain changes, new neural pathways can be formed, the nervous system can change, patterns can change, and identity and personality traits can change. Human beings are programmable, which means that we're also reprogrammable. And that's really what this reparenting work is about. It's not about becoming somebody new or fixing anything that's broken. You're not broken. But reconnecting to the parts of ourselves that we had to disconnect from in order to survive. Our truth, our instinct, our emotion, our playfulness, our softness, our innocence, our authenticity, our voice, our power. We've had to suppress all of these things just to feel safe and belong. And maybe most importantly, we've needed to learn that love does not require self-abandonment. If you could truly understand that, we do not need to teach self-abandonment in order to be loved. So if you were the good kid, the easy one, the helper, the strong one, the mature one, I just want to say this. Your nervous system adapted brilliantly. Honestly, you survived environments, dynamics, emotional pressure, and experiences with the tools you had available at the time, which weren't many. Heck, you didn't even have a prefrontal cortex fully developed. Survival is not supposed to be the final destination. You're allowed to outgrow the patterns that once protected you. You're allowed to stop shrinking. You're allowed to stop managing yourself into exhaustion. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to disappoint people. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to become visible. You're allowed to shine. You're allowed to be fully human. And honestly, saving the children is not only about protecting them from extreme harm. It's about learning how to stop teaching human beings that belonging requires disconnection from themselves. It is learning how to raise children who still know who they are. Children who don't have to spend the next 30 years recovering from what it took to belong. So if you're wanting some reminders of how to consistently practice this reprogramming of yourself and seeing your patterns, know that I have put together a few free resources for you. You can find them in the show notes here. There's a quick start guide to reparenting yourself. There's a conscious parenting guide, and I've also built a guide for leaders on what to look for before they scale. The links are all in the show notes. You can download them. That is what I have for you today. If this resonates with you, I would love to hear from you, or I would love to have you share it with someone you know. And I hope you all have a fantastic week. I will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to Reparenting Radio. If today's conversation supported you, take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who knows they were made for more than the patterns that they inherited. If you're ready for serious inner work and real transformation, personally or professionally, you can explore my leadership pathways at lisa-watson.com. And if you're raising little ones alongside your own healing, you'll find my children's books at awakentheone.org. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep reparenting the parts of you that are ready to come home to their authenticity.